This is going to be one of the hardest videos because this poem is so anthologized. Everyone, I mean, anything I say about Blake, I'm going to get comments that I'm wrong or that the interpretations are more advanced and more intricate, and of course they are. We've had some of our greatest minds approach Blake's poems. We've had poets as diverse as, Whitman and Yeats and Eliot and Pound and Ginsberg, and I mean countless artists continually going to Blake for inspiration and harnessing of ideas and imagery from such simple verses. And then we have our greatest critics. Once we had the recovery of this work from the Rossetti brothers and Swinburne, and then of course Northrop Frye, and still some of our greatest critics. It's impossible to really get around talking about or thinking about Blake. He's quite central to our literary tradition. So, I mean, when I read these, it's simply how I see what's going on, and some of the ideas, themes, and language that I think might help you in talking about, in approaching these poems, and then thinking about the comparison with Webster. Little Lamb, these are a series of questions about creation, and it's a child, inquiring to an animal. Little lamb, who made thee? Do you know who made thee? Dost thou know who made thee? Gave thee life, and bid thee feed by the stream and o'er the mead. Again, the pastoral, green imagery. Nature is in unity with this child and this animal. Gave thee clothing of delight. Amazing childish way of seeing the wool is clothing. The animal is drawn into human comparison. So the wool they have is actually clothing. Softest clothing, woolly bright. Gave thee such a tender voice, making all the vales rejoice. I mean, that is a fantastic just rhyme, almost deceptively simple, almost lost to me. Little lamb, who made thee? Dost thou know who made thee? I'll tell thee, I'll tell thee. There's a kind of excitement, insistence. He's called by thy name, for he calls himself a lamb. He is meek and mild. He became a little child. All of this is the suggestion of Jesus, who is compared to a lamb. And the emphasis of the Jesus here is not of suffering on the cross, but of forgiveness and softness and joy. I a child, and thou a lamb. We are called by his name. Lamb, child, Jesus, God, Holy Spirit, all are one. Everything is one. And this one is blessing. This one is unity. This one is joy and love. And I've had my students think this, I'll tell thee. There's a kind of more sinister, from questioning to telling, that could be seen there. And I think that's a possibility, of course, and interpretive, and why the poems remain interesting is there are people constantly finding new possibilities just in simple words or sound patterns. But for me, I think this poem exemplifies that idea of children, nature, God, all being unified and blessed in that unification, and reflecting on their creation doesn't lead them astray. It leads them towards a unity. It leads them towards a kind of a coming together. And that's what I think is the tone that dominates the Innocence poems. Now, when read against the Experience poems, yes, those lines do take on maybe a little bit more of an ominous sense, or as Northrop Frye says, the Experience poems show us the butcher's knife behind the lamb's innocent look. When read against each other, yes, there may be something more ominous, but alone, I think it's a meditation on unity and unification between man, nature, and God. So there's another classic poem that's really difficult to say anything new about, even to wrestle with. I'm going to get comments again because this is a classic poem that of course everybody has something to say about, and there are canonical readings and there are new readings. Again, I'm just going to tell you what I see going on here. So this is the experience poem. So what we see here is the questioner, this child inquiring of an animal, is a bit more disturbed and fearful about the questions of creation because the tiger seems so powerful. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? That rhyme, that off rhyme already is a bit disturbing, because what does it mean that your symmetry is fearful? And why does something immortal and more powerful than you is the only thing that could hold you together or create you? In what distant deeps or skies burnt the fire of thine eyes? We get this idea of the fire burning, imagery of fire, power, possibly something menacing. On what wings dare he aspire? What the hand dare seize the fire? So this powerful force, how could it have the audacity or the strength to grab the fire of creation? What shoulder and what art could twist the sinews of thy heart? And when thy heart began to beat, what dread hand, what dead feet? We get the idea of life, that image of life emerging. Again, power. Now we get the imagery of what is it called? Oh my gosh. The imagery of the blacksmith emerging with the hammer, with the chain. In what furnace was thy brain? So the blacksmith imagery, fire, hammer, chain, furnace, the violence and the power. Again, the dread grasp, dare its deadly terrors grasp. The idea is that creation and controlling creation seem to be something that's really causing the speaker a lot of anxiety. Who could have created you? Who could have controlled you? Because once you came to life, you must have been so powerful. But then that's kind of scary to me, because then there's something even more powerful than you that can control you. This is wonderful, wonderful imagery. When the stars threw down their spears and watered heavens with their tears. So the sparks of the blacksmith's work are showered down from the heavens and become rain and tears. I mean, this just complex set of images is so mythic and evocative. It's so powerful. When the stars threw down their spears and watered heaven with their tears, did he smile? I mean, did this was this pleasurable to create something so terrifying? And then the crux, did he who made the lamb make thee? Is the same creator both violent and tender? How is that possible? You see, it is possible. It's really not that confusing. But to this speaker, it is. It's causing them a lot, well, not a lot, but let's say enough anxiety that they keep questioning. And we go back to the opening stanza, Tyger, Tyger, burning bright in the forest of the night, what a mortal hand or eye dare. Now there's the change. So what could do this, to who dares do this? Who has the audacity, the fearlessness to do this, to both create the lamb and the tiger? Sam McDeasy isn't alone in modern critics, where he suggests the irony of this line is really about looking at the plates. And what's witty here is, did the same person who made the lamb poem make thee? Yes, Blake. So what that reading does actually is, this is a poem less about God and more about art and the valorization and the power of the artist. That the artist, the blacksmith themselves, has the power of creation. And that power is very serious for Blake. So in addition to its religious connotations, its connotations for the idea of identity, this is a poem that also asks us to consider the power of art. What makes it experience is notice how disjointed, fearful, and disconnected the speaker is here in relation to the tiger. Whereas when we read the lamb poem, there's a kind of unity of identity and feeling that takes place.